You know what's strange about waiting? It has a sound. Not silence, but the soft hum of hope that refuses to die. My name is Bailey, and I've been waiting at this train station for longer than I can remember. Most people who pass through here think I'm just another stray curled up by the benches, dozing between the comings and goings of the trains. But I know things. I notice what others miss. I smell what others forget. Every train that whistles through carries something on its metal breath, scents of perfume and coal smoke, the sweetness of reunion and the bitterness of goodbye. And every time those heavy doors slide open, I lift my head. My heart jumps for a moment before settling back into the ache of memory, because I'm not waiting for food or kindness or even shelter. I'm waiting for her, the woman who left me here once and who promised she'd return. The woman whose scent still lingers in the cracks of these old wooden benches like a whisper from the past. The one who said, "Wait for me, Bailey. I'll come back. If I ever leave this place, I'll lose that scent forever." That faint trace of lavender and soap mixed with train smoke and rainwater. It's the last piece of her I still have. Sometimes when the sun hits just right, I can almost feel her hand brushing my fur again, soft and certain. But the wind carries her away before I can hold on. I've learned that waiting isn't just standing still. It's surviving the silence between heartbeats. And if I stop waiting, if I give up this post, I'll lose not just her scent, but the memory of her voice, the promise she made that morning when the world still made sense. So I stay. I wait. I listen to the rhythm of the rails, the heartbeat of hope that still echoes through me. I was younger then, fast, strong, foolishly sure that the world was simple. I still remember the day she found me. It was summer, the kind where heat ripples above the ground, and the air smells of dry grass and dust. I was a muddy mess of fur and ribs, scavenging near the riverbank. When she called to me, her voice was careful but kind. I expected the usual, a shout, a stone, a turn back. But instead, she knelt in the mud and opened her arms. "You're brave," she said with a smile that melted something deep inside me. "You're coming home with me, Bailey." I didn't know what home meant then, but I learned quickly. It meant warm bowls of soup on winter nights, a soft blanket near the stove, and her laughter when I chased my tail too hard and toppled over. It meant belonging. She'd hum while she brushed my fur, telling me stories about her dreams, her mother, and the faraway city she wanted to see one day. I didn't understand the words, but I understood the feeling behind them. Hope wrapped in sadness, like a candle that refused to go out. Every morning we walked to the train station. She'd sip her coffee from a paper cup and read the newspaper while I chased pigeons across the platform. Sometimes the train conductor would lean out and toss me a biscuit. Other times the station master would laugh and say, "That dog's got better attendance than half the town." And she'd answer, "That's because he believes in promises." I didn't know what she meant until the day she broke one. It was cold that morning, colder than it should have been for autumn. The sky was gray and the air carried a strange stillness that made my fur prickle. She arrived with a suitcase. I remember that detail, the way her hands trembled as she held it, the way her breath came in quick bursts. She smelled like rain and something sharp, like heartbreak. I followed her all the way to the platform, tail wagging uncertainly. She knelt and hugged me so tight I felt her tears soak into my fur. "Wait for me, Bailey," she whispered. "I'll come back." I barked once, trying to tell her I didn't understand what leaving meant. The train roared, the whistle screamed, and then she was gone. The crowd closed around me and I was alone. I sat there until night fell, waiting for another train, another face. None of them were hers. Days turned to weeks. The station became my home. I slept beneath the benches, beside the ticket booth, behind the vending machine when it rained. The station master left scraps for me. The janitor filled a bowl with water every morning. Children waved from passing trains. Some called me Lucky, others Buddy. A few called me Ghost, because I always seemed to appear when the trains came and vanish when they left. But I wasn't a ghost. I was something else, a promise that hadn't given up. I learned the rhythm of this place. The morning freight at 6, the commuter rush at 8, the lull of noon, and the lonely wail of the night express that carried everyone somewhere, except back to me. I'd lift my head each time, just in case. Sometimes I thought I saw her, a flash of a blue coat in the crowd, a familiar tilt of the head, a scent half remembered. I'd run tail high, only to find a stranger looking down at me with pity. Poor old dog, they'd say, tossing me a crust of bread. They didn't understand. I wasn't hungry for food. I was hungry for her. Winter came and went. Snow covered the platform, muffling the sound of the trains. My paws ached from the cold, but I stayed. I'd dig little hollows beneath the benches to shield myself from the wind. Sometimes the station lights flickered, casting long shadows that made it look like she was standing there again. I'd whine softly into the night, hoping she'd answer. But only the wind replied. Years passed. My fur grew thin and gray. My body slowed, but my memory didn't. Every scent, every sound, every vibration of a train on the tracks carried her name. People came and went, but I remained. The station master retired, replaced by a younger man who didn't know my story. He tried to chase me off once, but when he saw the way I sat by the arriving trains, ears perked, eyes fixed, trembling with anticipation, he sighed and let me stay. You've got ghosts of your own, don't you, boy? He murmured, scratching behind my ears. I leaned into his hand, grateful, but my gaze stayed on the platform, because she might still come back. Sometimes I dreamt of her voice. It would come to me between the rumble of trains. Good boy, Bailey. You're brave, I'd wake with my heart pounding, certain she was near, only to see the empty platform stretching before me like a field of broken promises. Still, I stayed. Waiting wasn't punishment, it was purpose. It was the thread that tied me to her, the invisible leash that kept my spirit anchored. Then one autumn evening, everything changed. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors I hadn't seen in years, rust, gold, and fire. The wind carried something different that night, something that made my nose twitch and my heart skip. Lavender, train smoke, tears, her scent. I lifted my head, stiff legs trembling as I rose. The crowd blurred before my fading eyes, but I could feel it. She was here. I pushed through the sea of legs, my breath coming fast, my heart beating harder than it had in years. And then I saw her, at least I thought I did. Same blue coat, same dark hair pulled back the way she always wore it when she read by the window. She turned, and for a heartbeat, I forgot how old I was. My tail wagged weakly. My vision shimmered with disbelief. She dropped her suitcase, her eyes widening as if she were seeing a ghost. You're still here, she whispered, kneeling down. Her voice cracked, soft and raw. Her hands trembled as they touched my face. For that moment, time folded back on itself. The world felt exactly like it did the day she left, except now her hair was streaked with gray and her eyes carried years of stories I hadn't been there to see. I pressed my head into her palms and inhaled her scent, desperate, wild, certain. But something was off. The scent was right, yet not. It was familiar but not the same. And that's when I realized the truth. It wasn't her. Her hands were smaller, softer, yet they trembled with the same kind of grief. The scent that clung to her coat was a reflection of another life, a thread spun from the same fabric, but not the same garment. She wasn't the woman I had waited for. She was someone carrying that woman inside her. My heart stumbled as recognition flickered. The young face I remembered from summers at the riverbank, the little girl who used to tug at my ears and bury her giggles in my fur, had grown up. Now she was kneeling before me, eyes bright with unshed tears. My mother told me about you, she said softly, her voice breaking on the words. She said you'd still be here. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a photograph. Her fingers trembled as she held it out to me. Even with my fading eyes, I could see it clearly. There she was, my human, the woman in the blue coat who had promised to come back. Only now she was older, sitting in a hospital bed, her smile thin, but her eyes still kind. Beneath the photo were words written in neat, slanted handwriting. If she can't come home, bring him to her daughter. She passed away last spring, the young woman whispered. She wanted me to find you. She said you were family. The words washed over me like the first cold rain of winter. Shocking, numbing, impossible to ignore. I didn't understand everything she said, but I understood the scent of truth. It rolled off her like sunlight breaking through clouds. My human was gone. The promise had been kept, just not in the way I'd imagined. I pressed my nose against the photograph. It smelled faintly of lavender and train smoke, of hospital antiseptic and paper. But beneath it all, it smelled like love. Not the wild, impatient love of youth, but something steadier, deeper, rooted. The girl, no, the woman stroked my fur with trembling fingers. She always told me you were the bravest dog she'd ever known, that you taught her about loyalty, that you were waiting for her even when she couldn't be there. My legs shook. Years of waiting crashed down on me at once, a weight heavier than any winter. I had waited for a face that would never step off a train again, but somehow the face before me was enough. It wasn't her, but it was her, her daughter, her scent, her love, the continuity of a promise that had outlived the one who made it. She wrapped her arms around my neck. The warmth of her hug reached into the coldest corners of my old bones. Her heartbeat matched a rhythm I remembered falling asleep to as a puppy, when I'd curl up at her mother's feet after long walks. "Come with me," she whispered. "You don't have to wait anymore." For the first time in years, I stepped off the platform. My paws touched unfamiliar ground and didn't tremble. The station, which had been my prison and my temple, suddenly felt smaller, like a shell I'd outgrown. The trains roared past, but they didn't call to me anymore. I followed her out of the station gates, my tail lifting, my ears forward. I didn't look back. The journey to her home was quiet. She carried her suitcase in one hand and kept the other on my back, steadying me as if she knew my legs were fragile. The city blurred past. Streets I'd never seen, scents of bakeries, gas stations, wet pavement. But beneath it all, her scent anchored me. Lavender, smoke, and something new. Hope. Her cottage sat on a hill just beyond the edge of the tracks, a small house with white shutters and a garden of wildflowers that reached toward the sky as if they'd been waiting too. She opened the door and let me step inside. The smell hit me first. Wood floors warmed by sunlight, old books, a faint trace of the woman I'd lost clinging to the walls like a ghost. There was a fireplace in the corner, a rug by the window, and a small frame picture of her mother on the mantel. "This is your home now," she said, crouching to meet my eyes. "She would have wanted you here." I sank onto the rug, the weight of years settling around me like a blanket. For the first time since that cold morning at the train station, I felt the ache of waiting ease. Days began to pass in a new rhythm. Morning sunlight streamed through the curtains, warming my fur. She filled my bowl without asking. She spoke to me as if I had always been there, telling stories about her mother, about the life they'd built after leaving, about the train rides in the cities and the reasons she couldn't return until now. Her voice had the same softness, the same rise and fall, but now it carried a steadiness her mother never had. At night she lit a candle by the window. "For her," she said the first evening, "and for you." The trains still passed in the distance, their whistles drifting through the hills, but they sounded softer now, less like mourning, more like music. I'd lift my head from the rug sometimes and watch the flicker of the flame. The station wasn't calling me anymore. I was already where I belonged. I thought about the years of waiting, the cold winters, the scraps from strangers, the endless scanning of faces. It had all led here. It hadn't been punishment. It had been purpose, a bridge between two lives. My waiting had given her daughter a place to begin, and her arrival had given me an ending that wasn't really an ending at all, just a different kind of homecoming. Sometimes when the wind carries a faint trace of lavender through the open window, I close my eyes and imagine her. The woman who first rescued me, who knelt in the mud and said, "You're brave, Bailey." I imagine her watching us from somewhere beyond the tracks, smiling because she knows I kept my promise. I waited. And because I waited, her daughter found me. The woman who hugged me at the train station wasn't a stranger after all. She was proof that love doesn't die. It changes form, moves through time, and finds its way back when you least expect it. The scent of lavender still lingers, but now it smells like home instead of loss. And every evening as the candle flickers, I rest my head on my paws and let the sound of distant trains lull me to sleep. Not as a call to wait, but as a song of return. Now I sleep beside the fireplace where the air is always warm and soft with the scent of wood smoke and bread. Every evening she lights that same candle by the window, a small flame that flickers like a heartbeat. She says it's for her mother, but I think it's for all of us. For everything that's been lost and somehow found again. The house hums quietly at night. The clock ticks with a rhythm that feels safe. I hear the trains in the distance, their whistles floating through the hills like the echo of an old song. But they don't sound lonely anymore. They sound like homecoming. Sometimes when the wind sneaks through the cracks of the old house, it brings with it the memory of the station, the cold stone floor beneath my paws, the metallic taste of rail dust, the rustle of coats brushing past. But now those memories don't hurt. They're stories I keep folded neatly inside me, reminders that even the longest waits end with light. The young woman sits by the fire and reads aloud sometimes, her voice blending with the crackle of the logs. She doesn't know that I understand her tone better than her words, but it doesn't matter. The warmth in her voice is the same one that used to come from her mother. When she laughs, I hear two generations in the sound, the past and the present holding hands. I've learned that love doesn't vanish, it just changes address. It moves from one heart to another, from one home to the next, carried in scents and gestures, in memories whispered to an old dog half asleep on the floor. I'm old now. My eyes are cloudy, and sometimes I don't wake until the sun is high. But when I do, I find her sitting beside me, running her fingers through my fur the way her mother used to. "Good morning, Bailey," she says softly, and I wag my tail to let her know I'm still here. There are moments when I drift between dreams and the waking world, and I see the station again, not empty this time, but filled with light. The benches shine, the trains stand still, and she's there, the woman in the blue coat. She doesn't speak. She doesn't have to. She smiles, and I feel the same warmth I feel here, by this fire, with her daughter watching over me. Maybe heaven isn't a place. Maybe it's this, the quiet peace of knowing you were loved enough to be remembered. When visitors come, they ask about me. "Is he the one from the station?" they say. She nods, and they always look surprised, as if loyalty is something rare. "He waited all those years," they ask, and she just smiles and says, "He was keeping a promise." They pet my head, leave treats by the door, and I wag my tail, but I keep my eyes on her. She's the one I was meant to find. Every time she looks back at me, I see her mother in her eyes. There are nights when she sits quietly, the candle burning low, and I can tell she's thinking of the woman who raised her. I rest my head on her foot, and she leans down to whisper, "She'd be proud of you, Bailey." Maybe she's right. Maybe waiting was never about pain or patience. It was about faith, about believing that love, once given, will always find its way back, even if it takes years, even if it arrives in a different form. I can feel my body slowing down now. My breaths come deeper, my dreams stretch longer. The fire crackles, the wind hums, and life moves gently around me. I'm not afraid. I've already seen what love can do, how it can travel through time, cross tracks, climb hills, and find you again when you least expect it. The trains still call in the distance, but I don't need to chase them anymore. I've reached the end of my journey. If you're listening to this, maybe you've waited too, for a voice, a person, a feeling that once made your heart steady. Maybe you know the ache of believing someone might never return. But listen to me. Waiting isn't wasted time. It's the space where love grows roots. It's the proof that what mattered once still matters now. I used to think I was waiting for her to come back, but now I understand. I was waiting to learn what love really means. It's not in blood or names or promises spoken once in the rush of goodbye. It's in the choices we make every day to stay, to care, to believe. It's in a daughter who travels across years to find an old dog waiting by the tracks. It's in the way a candle burns for someone who can't return. The woman who hugged me at the train station wasn't a stranger after all. She was love returning in a different shape, a promise fulfilled through another heartbeat. And when I close my eyes tonight, I'll hear the soft hum of the trains and the laughter from the kitchen, and I'll know that everything I waited for has already come home. So if you've ever waited for someone or been found by someone who never stopped believing, then you already understand. The best love stories aren't about being reunited. They're about being remembered. Because love, real love, doesn't end. It circles back, patient and kind, finding its way through time and distance, through loss and silence, until it rests exactly where it belongs. And when that happens, when love finally settles, it sounds like this. The steady tick of a clock in a quiet house, the sigh of wind through an open window, the rustle of a page turning, and the soft breathing of an old dog drifting into sleep by the fire. That's what home sounds like. That's what love sounds like when it finally finds its voice.